Let's talk about some facts about pride just for a moment. I want to give you some very, very simple facts about pride. Number one, it has absolutely no foundation in our life. Now, I want to talk about this just for a moment. There is absolutely no foundation for pride in Mike Frazier's heart and life. There's absolutely no foundation for pride in your life. You say, what are you talking about? In and of ourselves, we have nothing to be proud of. Now you think about that. We are nothing more than a walking mass of sin that deserves nothing less than eternal separation from God. That's what we deserve. If it wasn't for the grace of God, we would burn in hell forever. That would be where our eternal destiny would be. That's why the Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15 and verse 10, but by the grace of God, I am what I am. You see what he's saying? He's saying, hey, I can't boast. I can't brag because there's nothing in me to brag about. It's all God. I am what I am by God's grace. If you have a lot of material possessions, don't take credit for that. You better say it's by God's grace that I have what I have. If you've got a good position at your place of employment, you better not say, well, it's all me. I worked hard. No, it's by God's grace that you're in that position. You got a great family. Don't take that for granted. And don't for a minute think that it's all you that made it happen. It's God by God's amazing grace. You see, there's no foundation for it. Listen to this verse, 1 Corinthians 4 and verse 7. For who maketh thee to differ from another? And what hast thou that thou didst not receive? A good point, right? What do you have that God has not given you? You say, preacher, I worked hard and I spent a lot of hours. Yeah, but God gave you the health to be able to work hard. You see, every good thing we enjoy in life comes from the hand of God. And he goes on and he says, now if thou didst receive it, why dost thou glory? If somebody gave it to you as a gift, why are you bragging about it? As if thou hadst not received it. Imagine a man who owes $1 million walking around bragging about it. That's what a lot of times we're like. We owe God everything. Everything you have, you owe it to God. So pride has absolutely no foundation. There's no reason to be self-righteous and arrogant and prideful and Pharisaical, as we read about a few minutes ago. Number two, it does not have a consistent appearance. It does not have a consistent appearance. You say, what do you mean by that? Well, pride comes dressed in many different ways. By the way, pride doesn't care where it lives. It doesn't. It always finds a home in the heart of a self-righteous person. That could be a rugged construction worker. Or that could be a pastor of some church. You see, there are people that deal with this matter of pride in every walk of life. And that's why I know tonight that this message, as I teach from this passage of Scripture concerning this topic of pride, that I know that there are people here that are struggling with this issue tonight. You say, oh, no, not me. Yes, you. I know that we all struggle with this. You say, oh, no, just somebody like this struggles with it. No, pride is an issue for every person. We can all struggle with it. And so this is a very practical message here tonight as we learn that there is absolutely no foundation for pride and arrogancy in our lives. And it does come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. And then number three, I want you to see it destroys us. Pride ultimately destroys us. Pride will destroy friendships, right? You think about that. People have been friends a long time, but maybe pride causes them to not be able to say they're sorry, and instead, what do? They walk away from years and years and years of friendship. What about marriages? Pride has destroyed a lot of marriages. What about churches? Pride can destroy churches. Bottom line, pride destroys people. Because of pride, Lucifer was cast out of heaven. Because of pride, Adam was kicked out of paradise. Because of pride, Saul lost his kingship. Because of pride, David fell out of fellowship with God. And because of pride, Nebuchadnezzar, right here in Daniel chapter 4, he went from the palace to the pasture, just like that. In the blink of an eye. One minute he's bragging about everything that he has. The next moment he's insane and he's out in the pasture and he's eating grass like a cow. You see, we need to understand that pride will always destroy. And it'll destroy each one of us as well unless the grace of God humbles us. The fourth fact, your pride cannot stand forever. Your pride cannot stand forever. Pride is the last thing that bows down before the Lord. But mark it down, because in all of our Bible examples that I shared here tonight, God humbled each one of them. Did he not? God got the last word, did he not? In every last one of those examples that I gave you in the Bible, when it was all said and done, these words were so appropriate. And those that walk in pride, God is able to obey. So your pride will not stand forever. The next thought, don't despair when God humbles you. God does have a way of dealing with the sin in our lives, does he not? There are times whenever I thought I wanted to deal with the sin in somebody's life. You ever felt that way? So I know what their problem is, and I think I'm going to correct it for them. Well, it's better to let God deal with it. God knows how to deal with people a whole lot better than we do. Don't try to get even. Don't try to settle the score. Sometimes it's just better to turn them over to the hands of God and say, God, you know what the problem is. You know what the issue is. I'm going to let you deal with it. But we shouldn't despair when God humbles us. Matthew chapter 11, verse 29, Jesus says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. We're supposed to learn from Jesus. For I am what? Meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. Jesus is what? Lowly in heart. And we're supposed to be like who? Like Jesus. So if Jesus was lowly in heart, in other words, he was humble, we are supposed to be humble as well. I am reminded of a couple of illustrations of individuals that God humbled and really truly changed their lives. One would be a very proud and arrogant Pharisee named Saul. You know the whole story about that. And then one day he met Jesus on the road to Damascus, and things changed completely. And suddenly the prideful, arrogant, religious zealot Saul becomes the humble missionary, preacher, the apostle to the Gentiles, Paul. Saul becomes Paul. Prideful, arrogant, now humble, even willing at times to come around and say, okay, I was wrong. A good illustration would be about his opinion about John Mark. And when John Mark did fail and walk away, he basically said, I don't want to have anything to do with John Mark again. He's nothing but a loser. But then along the way, he came around and he said, send me John Mark. I need John Mark. You see, he was willing to come around and say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. A person who's not able to say that has an issue with pride. Don't allow pride to destroy your relationships that you have with others. And then I'm reminded also of a man named John Newton. You remember the story about John Newton? He was an arrogant, prideful slave master who was humbled by God. And later on, he wrote that great hymn that we sing, Amazing Grace. You see, God is able to humble people. And when God humbles you, when God teaches you a lesson, don't get upset with that. Take it. Take it. Learn from it. Change. We've been talking about spiritual change on Sunday morning, have we not? God is trying to change our life. The issue, the specific area that he might want to change in your life is this matter of pride, trying to humble you. He wants you to put off pride and put on humility, right? To use the analogy that I had today from Ephesians chapter 4. Here's the next fact. If you don't humble yourself, God will do it for you. if you don't humble yourself, God will do it for you. I always tell people it's a whole lot better to allow God to deal with you here in a service than for you to be cold and callous and hardened and God deal with you after you walk out these doors. Wouldn't you rather deal with God in here and make things right with God right in a service like this than to walk out of here and then have the hand of God against you? 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5 and 6. Likewise, ye younger, submit yourselves unto the elder. Yea, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with what? Humility. For God resisteth the proud. He is against the prideful person, and he giveth grace to the humble. I don't know which one you want, but I'd much rather have the grace of God than to have God resisting me, right? And then the next verse, humble yourselves therefore under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Let God do the exalting. You don't worry about that in your life. You say, well, if I don't promote myself, who will? Let God do it. Just leave all that up to God. You just decide you're going to do what's right every day. You're not going to be prideful and arrogant. You're going to be lowly in heart, just like Jesus. And just let God take care of all of it. Only a proud person says, I've never been so humiliated in all my life. That's really the voice of a prideful, arrogant person. Jesus was assaulted. He was slandered. He was mocked. He was ridiculed. He was persecuted. Yet the Bible tells us in Philippians 2 and verse 8, and being found in fashion as a man, he what? Humbled. He humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. In closing, let me just say this. God is not out to hurt our pride. He's out to kill it. He's out to kill it. He doesn't want any pride, any shred of pride in our hearts and in our lives. Are you thinking about somebody else that needs to hear this message? That's pride, right? You say, you know what? I might get the CD to this message because there's somebody I'd like to give it to. Okay, that's pride. That's pride where you think, hey, great message, but boy, that wasn't for me. Must be for somebody else. Pride is so deceptive. It creeps into our lives. Let me encourage you here tonight. Let me caution you. Pride can be very dangerous.